Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. On this episode, we are talking about a new virtual event for the Dynamics 365 BC technical audience. The event is called BC Tech Talk. It's a first-year event. We sit down with several of the organizing team to learn more about what to expect at this year's inaugural event, why they put it together, who's going to be speaking there, and some of the opportunities that come from running a virtual event at a time when the physical events that many are used to, including in the NAV and BC community, are just not possible. We look ahead to some of the top themes of the event, some of the speakers, some of the sessions, and what it really means for building the community beyond the pandemic. All right, well, welcome all three of you. Thanks for joining. Why don't we go around the virtual table or the virtual room or whatever here and just do a few quick introductions so the listeners know who we have here. Petros, do you want to go first?
Yeah, hi, this is Petros Butela speaking. I'm one of the founders of Simplanova, which is a dedicated upgrade tools partner for the BC community. And I'm also behind organizing BC Tech Talk.
All right, and Alexander?
Okay, thank you. My name is Alexander Totovic, and I'm probably veteran of NAV and BC, almost 20 years in this area. I was an MVP before I joined to Microsoft, and now I'm in Microsoft responsible for C area in Dynamics Business.
Excellent. Welcome back to the podcast too. And hey, AJ.
Hey, everybody. I'm AJ Ansari. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at DSWI. I've been working with Dynamics Nav and now Dynamics 365 Business Central since 2007. And since 2018, I'm a Microsoft MVP for business applications.
All right, excellent. And as Petros mentioned, we wanted to talk and give a quick preview of this new event that's coming up in just a couple weeks here, the BC Tech Talk. It is a virtual event, a first-time virtual event, right? Running across 2 days, across a couple of tracks on those days. Why don't we start with a little bit of an origin story? Where did this all come from?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. So the idea was born because of the COVID lockdown. So there are some, and we were aware that there are some general BC events like Virtual Directions, DynamicsCon, the Summit, but the traditional event for BC technical people, NAV Tech Days, which is a great event, by the way, is not happening this year. So our team at Simplanova was visiting, since we were visiting NAV Tech Days every year, so we first thought about our own team. We wanted to have an event for the technical people, and then I figured that there must be more people like us. So I reached out to the current committee members of BC Tech Talk to see if we could get enough support for the idea. So I reached out to AJ Ansari, Alexander Totovic, Michael Megel, Dimitri Katson, Stefan Demiliani, and Domas Kudzevicius, whom I think you all know. And everyone said, let's do it. And I'm happy to see where we are with the idea. It's we started, I think I've reached out to them in September. So this is going quite fast.
Yeah, that's very fast. And and you now have a slick website up with the agenda and all the speaker information. And now you have an agenda ready to go, huh?
Yeah, there's a total of 14 sessions, one Microsoft Q&A panel, just for the technical questions. So Microsoft technical team is on board. We will have a few sponsor sessions. And at the moment of this recording, we have, as you can see, 720 signed up attendees. So we're hoping to reach up to 1,000. And what else? Well, there's going to be roundtables for live interaction because networking is an important part of these events. Of course, it's more difficult to do them online, but we hope to have that. And we will also engage in virtual chat room for chatting during the sessions.
So you've all seen, like you all as members of the organizing committee saw all these sessions come in. Did anything surprise any of you about the nature of the sessions that were suggested, or I don't know, any of the topics or anything like that?
So I think one of the things we noticed when Petros was giving his introduction, he talked about some of the other conferences that happened. And the other events that we had this year, the other virtual events, were primarily focused around, I think, the functional or the application aspect of Business Central. And I think it caters to a larger audience in that regard. What the developer community, what the technical community in Business Central requires is something at a greater level of depth. I think that maybe those conferences were offering, or maybe there were some sessions to that level of depth, just not enough of them, right? And so as I went through this content, as I was looking through the selection list, and Petros, is it okay if we name a couple of sessions? As I don't want to steal your thunder, so
Yeah, absolutely.
right. And so I thought it was very interesting as we look through kind of the sessions that were suggested. Right, we're talking about sessions related to Business Central and JavaScript. We're talking about converting your IP to AL, which is something that's been happening quite some. We've seen a few different sessions from that regard, but a lot of that is from the product manager perspective. How do you take what you have? What do you need to be able to get your intellectual property into app stores? But this session is going to be more of from a technical perspective. How do we do that, right? Business Central and serverless processing. These are the types of things I think that more of the technical staff, and every company has more functional consultants typically than they do technical staff. I think it caters to that smaller group. Very important, but a smaller group. And we've got some really good presenters, a distinguished who's who, if you will, of kind of the NAV technical community. I think we're Petros is onto something. I think this is going to be a pretty awesome event when it's all said and done.
Well, I'm personally quite happy to have we have some fresh content which was created just for BC Tech Talk, which is, well, for example, such as the new development ways in the latest version of BC, which is still actually in the process of being created. Then sessions such as maintaining Azure infrastructure using Terraform is also a new topic which wasn't seen before. Or, for example, using Company Hub add-on, which also came in the recent version of BC. So yeah, some of the sessions you may have already have knowledge for, but some are just fresh content. And I think I wouldn't be too far away if I'd say that this event agenda is dominated by topics for app development. So we have 4 sessions for that. We have configuration-driven app development, we have BC app development, we have mobile app development, and we also have Power Apps and Power Automate. So that's
Yes, I agree. We definitely have great content, and there are really a lot of new things, especially when you look there. I think that everybody can find something for him. When I look there, I think that I can learn a lot from few sessions for sure.
When you talk about app development, is that in comparison to, say, like customization of customization of standard features? Is that the differentiator there?
Yeah, I would say so. So extending what's inside Business Central using apps, I think there's I guess that's where we're going, and we see more and more content on that, and we see different ways of doing that, and that's what we have. I think that's why we have so many content on this event for that.
Have developers and technical staff, maybe other than developers, who are, let's say, have a long history with NAV and now with Business Central, do you feel like overall they're pretty eager to adapt and sort of learn the Business Central latest features, latest sort of techniques, bring in some of these Azure skills that they might need to develop? Have you sensed that they're eager to do it? Is there much resistance in this kind of an audience?
Maybe I can talk something about that, because from Microsoft perspective, as I'm working with the partners every day, I can say that we have maybe 30-40% maximum of developers eager to accept new development model. Unfortunately, I would like to say that we have better percentage, but the most of experienced developers are not so happy to continue with new development model. There is some resistance, but month by month, and they are starting to accepting new things. But generally, it depends from case to case. I have some partners where they started with new development model from early beginning, and they invested, and they are really good right now. But I have some partners where maybe just few of them are good in AL and extensions. But on the other side, what I can say that most of partners didn't invest enough to other Azure services and integration parts. Mostly they're just about Business Central and not about other services. Now you need to be really good in not in everything, because nobody can be good in everything, but you need to know a lot of different services from Azure, because very often you don't need to develop something. You already have some service. You just need to make some API to connect and to reuse it. But again, it depends from case to case, from person to person. And I think that with these events, similar events, we can encourage people to start to use this more and more.
Mm-hmm. That point about how you really can't kind of be an expert in as broad a way as you might want to is an interesting one. And just looking at some of the topics that caught my eye, you take the topic of sort of serverless computing and the services that Azure has to offer there, and then you add perhaps something like there's a session on Terraform, which is something I know very little about, but it's fascinating. And how you would sort of need to know that or apply or use it, I suppose, in conjunction with a Business Central deployment, and then going to something core like APIs. I mean, it really is the kind of range of topics where you are going to have to, I assume, probably want to know what they all are. But if you're going to be an expert, you're going to be an expert in maybe just one or a couple of those areas, because it doesn't seem possible to sort of cover it all at the depth that you might want to.
Yes, I agree. You cannot cover it all, but you need to know what we have as a services.
Mm-hmm.
Means you cannot know everything, how to use, how to implement, but you need to know what services exist. And after that, you will find the right person or right company to cooperate with.
Are there any speakers at this event that are sort of people who you weren't expecting to make an appearance to do a presentation? A lot of them I recognize the names, and they're great people who do lots of sessions and are very well known for their sessions. But anyone new who you would perhaps note?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't want to. Maybe it's just me, but I think that a few of them are new. I think Josh Anglesea is just starting with delivering content. I know he has a blog, but he's relatively new. And I think Tomasz is also one of the speakers, which is new and just starting out. That maybe the new names. Most of them are I guess, well-known names there.
One of the reasons I mention it is because it seems like, with this, as Alexander was saying, where there's still a lot of uptake to be done in the community, a lot of people who are not yet really well versed in some of these topics. It seems like it's a great opportunity for a new wave of experts to sort of rise to the front and sort of be recognized or introduce themselves from out of the background, if you know what I mean. It seems like one of those moments in time. So I'm sort of waiting to see who sort of emerges in that sense to embrace some of these things.
So, Jason, I think one of when I was hearing Alexander state his answer, I'm thinking back to a time when we moved from the classic client of NAV to the role-tailored client of NAV, right? It took a few years for that adoption to complete. There was a bit of a technical aspect of that adoption, right? The development language by and large stayed the same, but report objects had changed massively, and how you did that changed. The client presentation changed, and we're going through that phase. I think over time, probably in the next 24 months, we'll see a much faster, uptake of AL. And part of that reason is BC14 was the last version that supported traditional development, right? The traditional CAL, C-side development environment. So partners are going to be forced, as they sell new licenses in the coming 24, 48 months, to start and focus only on AL development. I think there's going to be some continued focus or attention to legacy customers who are in Dynamics NAV, but by and large, as newer customers and newer projects require more AL development, I think partners are going to have to adapt, right? There's going to be a little bit of a kind of your hand gets forced to it. And I just see we're kind of in that phase. The other problem early on with AL was that I would say, like any new development environment, any new development language, there are certain things that were missing. There were things that, whether you want to call it from a documentation perspective or the ability to have events for every single thing you want to do in your extensions for your cloud applications, maybe those things weren't quite as ready as you needed them to be. And this is still a journey. We're quite not quite at the finish line, but we're probably closer to the finish line than we are to the start line at this point. So I think community recognizes that. Another thing too that's happening in our world, I think back to what Marco said a few years ago. Marco Perisic, who was with Microsoft until fairly recently, maybe about a couple of years ago, he left, and when AL in the modern development environment was being introduced first at a directions conference, he talked about the future of the developer, the model developer for Nav and BC, somebody, a younger a development or a younger persona, right? Somebody with sneakers and stickers in your laptop and that type of stuff. And I think he was right. We have traditional developers who need to accept that change and unlearn and relearn, and you're seeing a lot more resistance there. But on the other side, I think we're going to have a greater influx of newer developers, younger developers who can relate to environments like Visual Studio Code, who can relate to a syntactical presentation of the development language the way it is in AL. And I think those are the types of things that are going to make it easier for younger developers to come in. And then you throw in the fact that Business Central's gone full cloud, and you have the ability to interact and integrate with a lot of other technologies that are cloud-based, right? Whether you're using Azure Functions, whether you're developing things for the Internet of Things, for IoT devices, or whatever the case may be, it becomes more exciting, right? Being able to model and create things around artificial intelligence and machine learning. Those are things that I think that just genuinely excite a younger developer crowd. So while we may not have all of our old developers fully transitioned to AL, I think there's going to be enough new developers coming in and probably enough old developers transitioning to where, like I said early on, in the next 24 to 48 months, we'll see a massive, I think the floodgates are going to open, if you will, with adoption.
Yeah, AJ, absolutely right. I noticed that the younger people don't have any problem to acquire new knowledge about AL, and the most of new developers are really young developers. But even older, they need to go out of their comfort zone, because now there is not only enough world, you need to be good in some other things. But okay, we have new developers, all will accept, probably all they will disappear from this world.
What's that sticker, evolve or perish or something like that, right? Without being
Yeah, I think it's also generally more motivating for the younger folks to work with the new technology. That's what we tend to see, is that they want to do that, and the topics we have here are really interesting. They want to do that. It's just sometimes maybe you don't. Maybe the customers are not yet ready to embrace that. So there's maybe not enough actual work that where you can use the technology, but we're definitely getting there. So eventually, yeah, the younger crowd is looking forward to that.
If you want to draw a parallel, just look to Power Platform. I remember the first time I presented a session on Power Apps at an user group conference. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I showed a very simple app that was created, and I showed a simple flow, and I think what used to be called Flow and is now Power Automate, and there was more amusement and bewilderment, I think, than a recognition of how this could be used in their businesses, of how a citizen developer tool could actually be viable, because everybody thought you got to go to your partner, you need an expert developer to be able to develop your apps. We've fast forward where we are today. Power Platform is very, I think, just kind of all over the place in the Dynamics world. It's become the foundation of so much that we do in the Dynamics 365 ecosystem, and it's going to continue to be even more important with Business Central as we have the CDS Business Central integration kind of becoming more and more robust. So yeah, just new technologies take a little while to be adopted or adapted, but ultimately, we have to continue to evolve and innovate if we're going to have Business Central as a very important mid-market ERP system.
Well, let me change the topic just a little bit, because I'm curious in terms of sort of who is interested in some of these topics. I would think my first thought would be it's developers or solution architects who work for partner organizations or perhaps independent consultants. Do you get the sense that there are also people from customer organizations who are being asked to be responsible for their own Business Central technology and managing, deploying, advancing it?
I think yes, for sure. I think that we will have a lot of customers there, because we have some really big customers with their own development departments. And not only partners and customers, we have a lot of freelancers. Now it will be much easier to develop something. I think we will have attendees from different sources.
Yeah, and it's easier for even advanced users to create an app using Power Apps, using configuration without even understanding the development side of it. So
yeah, and consider the fact that now with Business Central, the licensing is set up so that customers or end users don't need to invest a significant amount of money to be able to develop the same way partners do, right? In the old Dynamics NAV licensing model, there was a significant cost if you wanted to have the ability to design your solutions and build applications, and that's gone away. So I think as long as you have the know-how or the resources available to learn that know-how, I think customer interest in these events will increase. Another thing I was going to point out is from the future, in terms of future of the event, and I'm seeing this as somebody on the outside. I'm a committee member, but I have no idea where Petrus and kind of the primary organizers see this event growing. But there are a lot of people who can't make that annual pilgrimage to Antwerp, right, for NAV Tech Days. Fantastic event, great event, but a lot of us, especially speaking for the folks who are across the ocean, and it's a significant cost. So I think having a very tech-focused event that does not require the cost of travel and lodging and all those other things that go with going to someplace really far away, I think it'll be well received. And this Corona age and this COVID-19 age, we've become very accustomed to web-delivered events, and we've come to see it as more than just the 30-minute webinar and coffee type of presentation model to a let's have a full day, 2-day, 3-day focused event. And I think I think Petrus is a real opportunity for you to continue this, not as a complement to maybe what other events are doing out there, not necessarily as a competition to.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure whether the virtual experience will continue once the restrictions are lifted. I personally enjoyed the live experience over the virtual whenever I can, but I do agree that the traveling required is hard to achieve. So I wonder myself what will remain after we are out of the COVID-19 situation, and whether we would apply some of the things that we have now to our normal lives, or whether people would choose to go back to the way things were. And this is important for the virtual events, whether we will also not only have these virtual type conference, but whether we would embrace the online working and using more virtual events for things such as we were used to, meeting in person, and eventually having things done in a more productive way.
It's so hard to predict. One thing I do wonder about is how Microsoft themselves, I feel like, Microsoft sort of leads with their event calendar and everyone else sort of fits around it in this space. And with the enormous numbers that they've reported from their all virtual event schedule this year with their major events, with, I don't know about like the Business Central launch, for example, but like for the big ones for Ignite and Build and Inspire, right? 100,000 plus, I forget the exact numbers, but really like multiple times bigger than their in-person event in terms of the number of people who were able to get access. And I know Microsoft very much values accessibility. So I'll be very interested to see what those event planning teams decide to do. Like you said, Petrus, even once the events, even once it is safer to travel, it is safer to perhaps, meet in large indoor spaces. But I think then, how will that decision, either way, impact, smaller events just local to the Dynamics Business Central or Power Platform audiences, or sort of other more focused communities? I don't know if Microsoft staying digital will encourage more in person for the more focused events, or if we'll just continue to follow Microsoft, if organizations will continue to follow Microsoft's lead, and customers will continue to follow Microsoft's lead and want to stay digital. It's a huge question.
I think one of the things we got to remember is that COVID-19 doesn't have an end date, right? So there isn't a firm April 1, everybody's going to be, the world's going to be a happier place. So I feel like there's going to be this transition, and that might allow Microsoft and other similar publishers of scale to test out what happens with maybe hybrid events, right? So something that's partially live and partially simulcast or presented online. I think a lot of it will also come down to the experience that attendees get. I mean, the first event that I attended that was considered a quote-unquote conference was really just a much better version of a GoToWebinar or Zoom or Teams to present content for people to attend and ask questions. I think going from that, which was about March or April, early in 2020, to the last event that I attended, Directions Virtual, I think just the tools that are being used by event organizers to present content and to create an experience around a conference, I've seen just in those last few months evolve in a way that I felt very disjointed at one of the first events I attended to where the last event that I attended, it just felt like, yeah, I'm kind of in a conference. I could briefly suspend reality and pretend that I was kind of in a place where others have come to attend not just one session, but a multiple day event where people can stop and talk and socialize and meet about a session, about content, about the channel. So I think as long as that experience continues to be there or get better, and I think as long as publishers like Microsoft see that there's some interest or continued interest in, or people still being interested in staying home and attending content, I think we'll see this continue.
Mm-hmm. This is something similar what I wanted to say, because generally I'm missing face-to-face events. We cannot change this with online events, but we can do the best in given circumstances, and that's what we can do. But generally, I think for the future, some hybrid model, AJ mentioned, will be the best way, because a lot of people will like to stay at home and to attend. On the other side, as AJ mentioned, sometimes you need to sit on a plane and to go to another part of the world just to be there 2 or 3 days, and this is pretty expensive and time consumed, and it will be much easier if you can sit at home and to look some content. But on the other side, it will be better if there is some possibility to attend in live. And this is, from my perspective, this is not only about content. Okay, we can prepare content, but this is about open discussion. We can try with round tables and everything is possible, an online event, but this is not absolutely the same. And I think we will continue with some hybrid model, because, even if you ask a question in online, you can get direct answer on your question. But if you want to continue to discuss, this is not possible with these tools. This is not possible to be the same in a live world. But let's say some hybrid model. It means who want to attend in live, it will be possible. Who not, they will have opportunity to attend online. And I think this is something the best what we can provide for the future.
Well, as we move ahead with these virtual events, I think people get a clearer idea of what they want from them, what they expect in terms of an experience, what they've had in past events. I think it'll continue to evolve, like you said, Alexander. The hybrid, different kinds of in-person or different kinds of virtual experiences. I think it'll definitely keep changing. And this event is, just to recap, BC Tech Talk happens live online December 3rd and 4th, sort of 2 tracks per day, right? So we'll have sort of 2 sessions going on at any one point in time, attendees being able to sort of check into either one, contribute questions and chat in either one. Is that kind of the overall model?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up very well. Sessions are either 1 hour or 30 minutes. Each will have a Q&A, and if there's not enough time, we hope to complement that with a live roundtable experience.
Well, I'll be there. I can't. I'll probably pick and choose my sessions because some of them are just a little over my head, but certainly some that I'm really interested to hear about and see where kind of what the state of the art is, because I know it's advancing pretty quickly. Well, anything else you wanted to add? Anything else people should be looking for when they're signing up?
Yeah, I think I would say that even if you're not a developer, if you're a practice manager, if you are a product manager or kind of somebody who's on the pre-sale side, you should consider attending, because these are probably the type of technologies that your customers are having discussions about in their conference rooms. And you want to be able to talk to the strengths of Business Central and all the things that it can do. If you're a practice manager and your team has not yet, your development team's not yet up to speed with AL and Business Central and cloud technologies, I think, again, coming to this will help you understand that this part of the community is dynamic, it's robust, it's growing. And if you don't join the party, you're going to be left behind pretty soon. So I think about a year or 2 ago, this was, if you were doing these things or if you're interested in this area, you were a pioneer. I think now we're in the space where the big bus is moving and you got to get on the bus. If you don't, you're going to be caught, find yourself chasing the bus, and don't let that happen to your business. So I would say come to this event. It's not going to cost you anything. Some great content, great speakers, and it's a good event when Microsoft's participating, right? So kudos to Petrus and the organizers who've just done a massive job of finding the right type of presenters and getting Microsoft and sponsor commitments to make this a successful event.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to Petros Boutinos, AJ Ansari, and Alexander Todovich for joining today. I'm looking forward to BC Tech Talk. You can find out more information at bctechtalk.com. You can reach me by email, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.